All right, and we should be live there, Ed Jones.
Hello, Clint Powell.
How you doing, sir?
I'm hanging in pretty well.
Well, it's still crazy times, but hopefully some stuff is getting somewhat back to a little normal. How's the shopping going? Have you changed anything in as far as business goes? Can people come in and shop? All that back to normal or what?
Yes, they can come in and shop. We're going to be reasonable about amount of people, only twice if we had to limit people. We still are wearing the mask, which I'm perfectly fine with, and we're sterilizing and doing all the right things. Certainly don't require masks for people if they don't feel comfortable wearing it as a customer. But, you're right. Things are starting to turn the corner for less fear, but still with caution, which is a wise thing. The numbers are being reported, that we've had huge increases. Well, hell yeah, we're going to have huge increases. The more people you test for obesity, the more numbers you're going to see of obese people. Well, the same with this. It's just going to come about because we're testing more.
Right.
So, we have to still go back to the same thing that I do and say, which is we can support our immune system so well if we just know some basic things, from the food to some nutrients to the value of sleep, sunshine. And we all know, if we have watched TV for 15 minutes, everything involving this virus is an immune disorder.
Yep.
So we can do something about that.
Well, and I've social media has been great because you can see people sharing positive things, but it also can be very negative. And I've seen so many people that I know are friends get into these debate about masks. And to me, just personally, it's such a common sense thing. If you're out and you're in an open area and you're not close to people, then don't wear the mask. But if you're at a store or you're shopping and it makes other people comfortable, it's just, to me, it's a common courtesy thing. Even if you don't believe in it, you're not giving, I've said this, I think it may have been with you, with freedom comes responsibility, and it's not giving up your right. If you really just don't want to wear the mask, you don't have to. But I don't think there's anything wrong with wearing the mask if it makes your fellow people, your fellow neighbors, more comfortable, and it may protect them, because none of you know. And the fact that I see people post, well, even the professionals don't know. Right. So why not take the precautions? Since nobody really knows, just take the stinking precautions.
Well, I agree. And the thing is, the virus, as Dr. Green spoke about with me on the Vital Health Radio last Sunday, 2 days ago, the virus has a certain molecule size. Well, guess what? The size in the whole of all masks is at least double the size of the virus. That means that the netting is not small enough to truly stop it. But part of this is helping to alleviate fear. And if it makes people feel better, and it probably works a little, there's no doubt, just because the air is being, instead of it coming out at a normal mile per hour of whatever we breathe, it has to be reduced because there's some impediment there.
Right.
So there's going to be some value to be had in that. Personally, what I don't want to do is be ordered that I have to wear a mask. I think I'm fed up to my Adam's apple with Nazi type of tactics, with signage and attitudes of people in business. These business people have forgotten who pays their freaking bills, which is the customers. And I don't care how stressed out we have gotten in the nutrition world. We're not perfect. I'm sure there was a few people who might say we weren't the most friendly, but I would fire somebody if they ever acted the way I have seen people act, jumping on people because they stepped over the line, because they tried to pull a door open. No, what have we gotten to? This is absolutely asinine. And a business that is operating that way doesn't deserve to stay in business. Sorry.
You can just be like me as a consumer and do what I do. Stay at home because I'm a hermit and buy stuff online from Nutrition World. Call them and say, hey, I'll be there in 15 minutes. And so far, everybody, your folks, walk out to their car with their gloves and mask. They put it inside my car. They hand it to me and they walk off, and they're super. And it helps because I live in fear. So it helps it helps me live in my little fear bubble, which is fine. I don't really care. Hey, all right, so we're going to do something a little different today, and I've got some screenshots because the last 2 or 3 times we have most of our video, and it rightly so, has been consumed about our immunity. And I want to talk a little bit, very little about that. But I took some screenshots of your last 3 podcasts. And what I want to do is talk a little bit about those so people will actually go listen to them, because that's where all the really good meat on the bone is. But before we do that, I asked you before you came on, is there anything new you want to pass along, business wise or supplement wise? And you wanted to make sure everyone knew about biotin. Did I say that right? Biotin?
You did, because that is a very, very common particular vitamin that a lot of women take. One reason they take it is because this is one of the few vitamins that is recommended by every doctor. If you go in and you're 50 plus years old and say, I'm losing my hair, well, there are some credible studies showing that extra biotin at pretty high amounts, which is 5,000 micrograms or above, can, in some women, improve their hair. Now, there's many other things that can improve hair. I did a podcast on that. But what I found out, which I try to stay on top of my game every single day, is that if you are taking biotin, the chance of this COVID antibody test being accurate has just decreased significantly. And also, I've been talking this for 3 years because very few people realize, and even some physicians are not realizing, if you're on high dose biotin, the thyroid blood test may be inaccurate. It's the only vitamin out of the whole encyclopedia that alters blood values to this degree. So biotin needs to be off of your plate for 1 to 2 weeks before giving blood.
Wow. That's a pretty big, I mean, that's a pretty big deal for maybe a small amount of a small population. But if you're in that population and you're living concern and you're a concern and you're going to go get the test, 1 to 2 weeks, you might want to go with 2 weeks just to be safe again, because I operate out of fear.
Yeah.
Out of fear. All right, let's do this. I screenshotted your last few podcasts, and we're 7 minutes into this. And if you're wanting to find out more about Ed Jones and the content he provides, you can go to the holisticnavigator.com, which is his podcast, vitalhealthradio.com, which is the radio show he does on Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock on 98.1 The Lake with Dr. Green. Or you can go to nutritionw.com, which is Nutrition World, where you can buy product, or you can see blogs and contents and events and all that stuff.
One thing I want to cut in there. Sorry,
Yeah.
Clint. Last Sunday, Dr. Green made a really strong statement, because we both feel the same way about this whole episode of massive fear. But he said that many of the people who he's retesting for COVID, because he uses the ultimate test, these walk-in clinics and labs are not always using that test. He has found false positives and false negatives because they're not all accurate tests. People think, oh, well, if it's being given, it's got to be accurate. Dr. Green says it's not accurate. So if you really want the big test, you need to know who's doing it, and is it an FDA approved test for COVID? And it may not be.
If they go to vitalhealthradio.com, I'm sure that episode's up. If it is, was there info about that there if they want to dive deeper?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Good
And
stuff.
I did also write a new ebook that was 28 pages long. If you go to nutritionw.com and type in the word immune, it will pop up. You have to give your email to get it, but it's a 28 page. I'm kind of proud of it. I worked quite long to produce this ebook, and it really is the nuts and bolts of people who are concerned about what do we do to maintain an immune system, what do we do when it's failing. So there's 2 parts to this. So nutritionw.com, type in the word immune.
Well, here's the other side of that coin. This won't be the last time. If you think in your lifetime, last 2 months and until this is over is when I really need to be worried about my immune system, it's pretty good for that to be a focus all the time, whether we have a pandemic or it's flu season or you just want to live a healthier life. I would start putting in place habits concerning your weight, your food, your supplements, and feeding your brain this kind of information, because let's say this is gone by August from my mouth to God's ears. Let's say it's gone. Do we really want to go back to not caring about our immune system and just wait for the next thing?
You're exactly right. And number one is it won't be gone.
No.
It will be here for as long as we are here. Secondly, is I am going on 3 Plus U this Thursday because it is time for different conversations. We still have to do and fill out the basics of the immune system continuously. But the topic for Thursday is, how do we lose quarantine weight? It's time to get back in shape, start losing our weight, so we feel better about ourselves. Doesn't mean you're going to the beach and showing off, but there's a lot of weight gain been going on. In fact, I went on a rant on my Instagram last week. Did you see my rant, Clint?
I may have. I watched a lot of your content. Which one was it?
You would have remembered this one. It was all about something we've talked about:
Oh,
donuts.
I saw that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 When I was PO'd because I was on Brainerd Road videoing all of the cars lined up at a mid afternoon getting their donuts. So it just there's nothing wrong with having some junk food. You'll see me have it, but the problem is I know people all too well. This was their lunch or supper. And they're not taking supplements, and they're not eating their green vegetables. Probably most of them are not. So you can balance unhealthy food, but I don't think a lot of people are balancing these days.
Well, I think we're going to come out of this quarantine. There's two people. There's the type of people that went into it and are going to come out, whether it's personal habits or business, will come out stronger. I've lost 12 pounds, 13 pounds. My habits, maybe you went into this and you go, wait a minute, I need to refocus life, not just business, but life. And then there's people that are going to come out of this and I completely understand it because I battled it too. The malaise that sets in, the depression or the sadness or the gray. The sky's beautiful, but it's gray in my world. And they're going to come out. They've gained 10 pounds. They feel lost. And I completely agree. I think it's time to say some hard things to ourselves. If I'm 10 pounds overweight, because I live in a range. When I'm in my prime and I feel good, if I stay within 5 pounds up or 5 pounds down, I feel pretty good. But if I'm 30 pounds overweight, which Clint is, then that's not good for Clint. It's not good. It's not good only because we're in a pandemic. It's not good because it's life. My knees hurt, my hips hurt. So what do we do? And I think if the conversation's around just the virus, that's not enough motivation a lot of times when for us. What does it really need to be around? And that's why I'm glad you're changing the conversation.
Yeah, and the thing is that 93% of all people on ventilators are 30 pounds or above overweight. So it is a huge risk factor. If you have that plus one other risk factor, you have to have two to be on a ventilator. That normally is, and that's why if you conquer those risk factors, your chance of being on a ventilator is practically nil. That
Right.
means you're going to probably do well and survive, like 97 to 98% of all people do. But this weight gain thing, forgetting that it's not good for us, is not good for our self esteem. If you think back of those of us who are older, the 1970s and before, and you watch old films of high school people or just graduations, one out of every 25 kids, uh, the other majority, they were kind of like just normal. Well, what's happened? Well, one thing that happened was the low fat craze. The low fat craze is what turned us into a nation of pigs because it made us think that fat was unhealthy, so we have to replace fat. What do we replace it with? Low fat foods, which were made of carbohydrates. Well, carbohydrates are a demon. In fact, when I talk on Julie at 3 Plus U on Thursday, we're going to give 3 tips. The 3 tips are to lose weight, which are very simple. Not that I've written the book on it, but do what I have done for 4 years. Replace one of your meals with a super healthy, low carb, high fat drink. That's my breakfast. I do it 6 out of 7 days, been doing it for 4 years. It fuels the body. When you start the day right, you can make some mistakes. You start the day wrong and your blood chemistry goes haywire, you're done for. You're toast. I don't care how good you eat the rest of the day. So buy the drinks that are non-GMO, organic, the right protein, the right this, the right that. Put some greens powder in it and a healthy fat and blend the sucker up. That's your breakfast every day. That's one. And secondly, when the food comes or you order foods later in the day, you have to be carb aware. You have to know you cannot eat excessive amounts of rice, pasta. We're not even talking about junk food. We're talking about just normal food, bagels, all cereal. You have to balance it with healthy fat and protein. And then lastly is time restricted eating, or could be called intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Those three things, you're going to lose some decent weight, and it's actually going to save you money. Let's see, you're not going to eat as many meals. You're going to actually save tons of time because the drink I make takes 3.5 minutes in the morning. I'm in the drink, I'm out the door in 3.5 minutes. and it's no more money than buying a good breakfast.
But I think I drink the same thing as you do. You hooked me up with that Green Vibrance.
Yeah.
Well, too, and I'll say this: it does something I think as important. I think if we make one or two small changes and show a little discipline on things like that, it builds our I call it our highlight reel. You know, it builds the successes we have.
Mhm.
Keeping small commitments to ourselves is usually one of the biggest problems we have. If Ed says be somewhere at 4, I'm gonna be there at 4. If Ed says, can you help me with my podcast, I'm gonna help you with your podcast. But a lot of times Clint will blow off commitments to myself because I'll do it later. I'll start tomorrow. But these little things, if you start building the bricks in the wall of success, you can kind of go, well, I've done it for 5 days. I don't want to mess up today. You get some momentum.
Momentum, that's the key word.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also not being too hard on yourself, because we're going to fall off the wagon some. But when you do, it's kind of like when I talk about how often do people need to work out? I say, when I wake up, or I don't do this because I'm nuts, but most people should do this. When they wake up in the morning, they should ask themselves, did I work out yesterday? If the answer is no, you don't have an option. Today's your workout day. I don't
Yeah.
care what happens. If you say, yes, I did work out yesterday, well, then you might can take today off and you don't have to feel guilty. But you have to work out every other day.
No, don't take a day off. That's what I've learned. I've gotten back to that the last 2 months. I'm
Or
back to that.
that you can
Don't
do
take a
full
day off.
time, and you just don't even have an option for that. But most people can't do that like you. You can be very disciplined, as I know.
Yeah. Let's do this. Let's go through some of these screenshots of your podcast. So if you go to the holisticnavigator.com and you go back to May 1st, you did one with Dr. Jared Bergman, DC. Guard yourself from EMF. What is that? Give us a snapshot so people can go listen.
Well, EMFs are electromagnetic fields, and I'm
I
highly
can't hear you all of a sudden real quick, Ed.
EMFs are electromagnetic fields, and that is, of course, what's put out by every electrical appliance. You put this in your little black book. In 10 years, or somewhere around there, it will be known. Right now, we're at the stage of EMFs that we were with smoking in the 60s. Yeah, it's probably unhealthy, but not too bad. I'm sure it'll be fine. No, no, and no. Excessive EMFs are already proven to do so much with our brain chemistry in a negative way, from ADD to brain tumors to anxiety to depression. Now, that doesn't mean you don't use cell phones. It means that you take appropriate steps, just like we do with this virus. I have a cell phone protector that does not allow EMFs to come out. I put everything 5 feet away from my head at bedtime so I don't have it radiating into me all night long. Now, all the supposed experts are just poo pooing that. They poo pooed cigarettes because doctors advertised smoking in the 50s as being a good thing. Same thing that we're going through now. And it increases the risk of immune dysfunction. And you know what? It's probably coincidental, but where this virus originated in China was the first city where 5G was installed. Very interesting that
I was
that
going to
was.
ask about 5G.
Yeah,
Did y'all talk about that in the podcast?
yeah, we do. Yeah,
Okay,
and what
good.
the thing is, there are methods. In fact, this thing right here is what I'm wearing from him. He invented this little. You can't really see it too well, but this doesn't block EMFs, but what it does is reset your frequency constantly during the day. So when the EMF knocks you off, then you kind of come back to harmonious electrical systems in your body. We are electrical beings. That's how we run. And who would not think we're not altered by something that was as powerful as 5G? So I just think we need to be aware. And in Russia, if a woman gets pregnant, they go test her house for EMFs because they realize that had the danger to a developing fetus with EMFs. So
Go back and I'm on your podcast page right now. That one was on May 1st. You can go back and listen to that one. Let's see.
you know what my number one most listened to podcast of all 74, which really surprised me. I did not realize this till last week. Constipation.
Is it really?
Yes, it has beat everything, including my interview with Dr. Mercola. You name it, nothing held the numbers that constipation has held. So, obviously, that's not talked about. That's why we don't hear it. But obviously, in private, people really need to know, which I'm aware of because they do talk to me about it. But it's an
You get
issue.
all kinds of questions.
Every question known to man comes my way.
I think they would probably tell you stuff they don't even tell their doctors. They're
They
probably like,
do.
all right, look, this is doing that. How do I stop it? The other one you did was how to subdue the adrenal fatigue, and you did that with Cheryl Myers of your Euroforma. Is that it?
Yeah, you're a pharma. Very, very sharp expert in the field. Adrenal fatigue, I can assure you, probably we have more of that going on right now we've ever had in the history of mankind. What is adrenal fatigue? Well, the kidneys are on the backside of the body. Well, sitting on top of the kidneys are these two little bitty bean-like pieces of us called the adrenals. And they produce hormones that allow us to function during the day, to run from the tigers if we were in the jungle, or deal with the stress of whatever's in front of us, because it produces the things that saved our life throughout the history of mankind. Because what it does is, first off, it redirects blood away from any process in the body that's not mandatory. So if you were all of a sudden the phone rings and you've got an emergency situation to handle, which happens to most of us every day, it seems, the blood to your digestive tract is going to be decreased. The blood to your feet could be decreased slightly. Everything that it all goes to where it needs to go to survive this moment. Well, the problem is that system was built for us for the jungle days. We didn't have urgent needs every other hour like we do now. So the adrenals of this country are zapped totally. And that's why we feel like jellyfish and we just are like snails, because the adrenals can't pump the things, the norepinephrine and epinephrine and the hormones back into the system.
Well, there's no shut off. There's no off switch. We're
No.
always in it. We've learned that, we've made everything stressful. And I think it's a great analogy you said with the phone, because if my phone rings, I've got to stop what I'm doing and go address it instead of just putting it in its place going, I'm doing something else, put everything in its right perspective. And it goes back to something that, which, this may be a myth and you can explain it, but I never ate within 30 minutes of doing a workout, because before I started working out, I would eat an hour or two before.
Yeah.
But if I never eat 15, I used to play, when I played rugby or did my boxing thing, I didn't eat after about an hour and a half before. I never ate after that because I didn't want my body worrying about digesting food when I needed it in my muscles and in my brain.
Absolutely. Perfect. Now, what do we do about it? Well, we have to address sleep, one, because I don't care how much goodies you take in here or your food, good foods, you can't really rehabilitate that weakened gland without adequate sleep. And that's been my second most popular podcast, is on sleep. And believe it or not, you don't have an Ambien deficiency because you're not sleeping. So don't fall for that bag of lies. Uh,
You wanted to
so,
cuss. I saw it. You
yeah,
wanted to
I
say a
know it.
bad word.
So, and then secondly, we have to supplement the adrenals. We have to give it things that it actually needs to rehabilitate. Just like you would if your leg was broke and you were short of calcium and magnesium and vitamin D, we would need to give the body those three things so it could mend itself. We need to mend the adrenals.
All right, let's talk about the most recent one you did, which, when I first read it, I was like, why does Earth Day matter, with Dr. Kate of Natural Factor? And then I started reading it's actually how what we're putting into the earth gets into our food and then gets into our bodies. Give everybody a snapshot of that so they can go listen.
Well, I tend to think everybody is in my camp just because I live in this world here, but I also certainly logically realize they're not. Every single thing that we come in contact with food wise, uh, we're reaping the either benefit or the destructive nature of what that food's history is, I guess I would say, from start to finish. I know I have a friend who was telling me that he had some swordfish. He went up to a place up in Hickson and had swordfish on Saturday night. And I guess he saw the grimace on my face and he said, "Why?" I said, "Swordfish has the highest level of mercury of any fish ever eaten." And I said, it's really dangerous fish. It just is. So knowing the history of your food, where it's grown, how it's grown, is it? And I don't mean to put people in a corner and say, "Oh, you have to live in a cave and be perfect." You don't. But we can make so many common sense decisions about where to buy our food, how to fix the food, that will create superior health rather than inferior. In fact, this morning there's a guy, and I don't particularly care for a lot of his stuff, but Dr. Greger, on nutritionfacts, I think, .org. He analyzed the foods that were cooked in different cookware, and he did the stainless steel, he did the aluminum, he did the Teflon. Lordy, oh my God, you would not believe the amount of Teflon that comes out in the first 6 meals that are cooked in that pot. It still is bad after, but the first 6, it's awful. And I did not know that Oral-B floss has Teflon on it. So every time you floss your teeth with Oral-B floss, you're getting a freaking heavy metal that's going to poison your brain. No, it can't. You have to know these things. We don't have an owner's manual for this body that came out with us when we were born. So you have Ed Jones. That's what you have.
Well, and you have the Holistic Navigator. And if you want to go back and listen to any of those shows, just go to the holisticnavigator.com and there's deeper dives. I will say this, what you just said, it's almost like we have the mindset of, since I can't control where all my foods come from, I don't know where it's been processed, and I don't have time. I got kids, I got a job. I'm just trying to live the best life I can. It's almost like we said, since I can't control it all, I can't control anything. What I think is, if we can learn to control the few things that we really, really can, then all of a sudden, when something happens, we're not at the mercy of whatever's going on at that moment. So anyway, there's my there's my rant on that. And the last 3 podcasts at the Holistic Navigator, we talked about, if you're just tuning in, Biotin, Biotin.
Mm-hmm.
If you're taking that and you're a lady who's taking that for whatever reason, just understand you may get some false misreadings on your COVID test.
Yes, misreadings, that,
Okay.
and on thyroid test, both.
Thyroid test. Lastly, I'm going to tell you, there's a song I just posted. A buddy of mine, Gary Miller, posted it on his page, that if you're a guy, or if you're anybody, but if you're a guy that's aging, he posted this new song, and I was going to tell you to go listen to it off the air, but just go check it out. I think you'll like it. It's called "Don't Let the Old Man In."
Oh my gosh, no! I've talked about it 3 times this weekend. I told somebody who was 27 years old that I'm living by that motto, because the old man's knocking at my door, and I'm not going to let him in until I have to. And the way to not let that old man in is through the foods that you choose, the exercise you do, the sleep you get, and the nutrients you take. If you don't do those 4 things, you are shit out of luck.
And that may help. That helps your brain. I like it. The part of it where it says, just smile out the window. Just kind of wave at him. You ain't getting in yet, baby. Anyway, it's a good song. Go check out the holisticnavigator.com, vitalhealthradio.com, and nutritionw.com. Do what I do. If you're not comfortable going in stores yet, go to nutritionw.com, shop. They'll bring it out to your car. And you guys are answering the phone and answering questions, because I've called several times to ask about different stuff.
We're here to help anyone that we can legally without treating a medical condition.
There you go. All right, Ed Jones. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, my friend Clint.
All right. See y'all. Thanks, everybody.